Thanks, everyone. Good to see you. I'll tell you a little bit about myself to begin. I'm the Senior Director of Mission Informatics at the ALS Association, and that means I work on a lot of projects and programs that pertain to data, specifically self-reported data from people with ALS, MND, and caregivers in the community, mostly in the United States. And so the talk I'm giving today stems from one of those programs, which is our ALS Focus Survey Program. I want to thank my co-authors listed here on the study that I'll be presenting, and also our ALS Focus partners, first and foremost, our Patient and Caregiver Advisory Committee, and also support from our other external partners, including Sanofi, which is our industry sponsor for this survey, and also on ALS Focus. ALS Focus is a survey program that asks people with ALS and current and past caregivers in the United States about their needs and challenges. This is a community-driven, formal research study, and it's reviewed by an institutional review board, and it's an opportunity for people with ALS and caregivers to participate in research from home. We work with external experts like the pharmaceutical industry, our incredible advisory committee of people with ALS and caregivers, the different federal government agencies and academics and clinicians, all of these people bringing them together to design different ALS-focused surveys on urgent issues. And through these surveys, we gather information from the community to enhance and infuse research and advocacy in care. And we share all of the data that we collect for free globally. Last spring, we ran a new survey. We run surveys throughout the year, but our survey last spring was on two different topics: clinical trial preferences and treatment needs. And my presentation today describes the treatment needs part of this study. The treatment needs study scientifically measured what do people in the ALS MND community want future drug treatments to target. So what would their priorities be if they could design a drug in the future? Data on treatment priorities like this can help inform what's called patient-focused drug development. So it's really infusing that drug development design and pipeline with information on what's meaningful from the community's perspective. We designed this survey by reviewing different published studies and gathering input from community members and the United States Food and Drug Administration, pharmaceutical experts, and external ALS organizations. There are some people in this room who I've consulted before on different ALS-focused survey measures. Excuse me. And we gathered all of these insights to actually write those survey questions. And then we programmed the questions in an online platform. And see, we're really careful when we program these measures to design the interface in a way that people who are using eye gaze devices or other AAC devices can participate in these surveys, and to make them accessible for people to participate in from home. We use many approaches to recruit for this survey, including email, social media. We present at local support groups. I've asked people in this room to present in the groups that they lead. It's really a full-time, year-round job to recruit, to make this survey research program as big as possible in terms of participation. So the study that I'm talking about today, the treatment needs study, took place in April and May of last year. Eligible participants were people with ALS or someone that they designate as a proxy to take the survey for them if they choose, as well as current and past caregivers. We have really open eligibility criteria in this research study, And people need to be at least 18 years old or older and reside in the United States. And again, this protocol is reviewed by an institutional review board. So this was not only the criteria for this study, but also for ALS Focus as a whole. And so if you know anyone who meets these criteria and wants to participate in research, this is an opportunity to bring your experiences into all of the work that's going on in the ALS field. For this survey, we needed a really accurate measure of treatment priorities. That was the key concept to collect data on. So to be safe, we actually designed two measures, not just one, two different ways to ask people with ALS MND and caregivers what symptoms and aspects of daily living do they think drug treatments should prioritize. Here's how we did this. The symptoms and aspects of daily living that we focused on are shown in the red box on the left, items like breathing ability and limb strength. And we generated this list of 9 items from all of that literature review and stakeholder engagement. So everyone who took our survey saw these items, but the question that they were asked about these items differed. Half the sample was randomly assigned to version A of the question. This question was 2-part. It asked them first to rate each of the 9 items. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate him a lot. So they were asked first to rate each of the 9 items on a scale from not important to very important. And then they were asked after that, which of the items that they rated as at least somewhat important was their top priority. The other half of the sample saw version B of the question, which showed the same 9 items, and then asked them to identify their first, second, and third priority items. Finally, everyone in the study saw an open-ended question in the red box on the right, and it was asking if there are any other symptoms of ALS that they would like to see addressed in future drug treatments. So just in case our 9 items didn't cut it, they had a chance to tell us what they thought was important. I'll show you the actual questions for version A and version B when I show you the results. And here are those results. This was a really wonderful success or accomplishment in this study. It took a whole team and to recruit over 1,000 people with ALS and caregivers. They're grouped into 834 people with ALS or proxies and 263 current or past caregivers. At least one person from every state in the United States participated, except for Hawaii, so we need to do some more work there. This was a big accomplishment because it's really difficult to recruit for research in general and ALS research. And we are building this panel of people with ALS and caregivers so that the entire ALS community can benefit. Right now we have over 3,500 people who've taken at least one ALS-focused survey, but this treatment needs survey is our biggest survey to date. Demographic characteristics are shown here, and the different demographic characteristics are on the left-hand column. And then in the middle, you see people with ALS or their proxies, and then on the right, current or past caregivers. Most participants were between 55 to 74 years old. Within the caregiver group, there were more females than males, and most participants reported being white. That's just some of the demographic traits. This is another set of demographics, but these are about people with ALS specifically. So we asked caregivers about the people that they care for. And about 10% of people with ALS reflected in this survey were veterans, and most reported sporadic ALS. ALS onset was quite diverse in this sample. So you'll recognize this randomization slide here. Randomization to the questions. 499 participants saw version A, and another 499 were assigned to version B of the questions. And in both of these groups, there was different people with ALS and caregivers. I'm going to give you the headline first. The main treatment needs that rose to the top were breathing, speaking, and swallowing ability. And this kind of stayed true for both people with ALS, MND, and caregivers. This result was also true in both version A and version B of the question. So the consistency here matters. This slide will start to break down some of the details of that main headline. Thank you. This shows the version A results. In the bar chart on the left are the results of the question where we asked, thinking about ALS drugs that might be developed in the future, how important is it that these drugs target each of the following items, the 9 aspects and symptoms of daily living? You can see on the left that many of those symptoms emerged as important, and we kind of thought that would be true from some of the formative work that we did. So on the right, we asked, of those items that were somewhat important, what's the most important to you if you had to choose? What's your top priority? And that's where you can see breathing ability rise to the very top. This is true for both people with ALS, MND in red and caregivers in blue. Here are the treatment priorities results for version B. This version asked, when thinking about drugs for ALS that might be developed in the future, which of the following are most important to target? Please indicate your top 3 priorities. And people literally were answering first, second, third. Respondents most frequently chose breathing ability as their first priority, swallowing ability as their second priority, and speaking ability as their third. And this pattern again held true for people with ALS and caregivers. After version A and B, all participants were asked the open-ended question, are there any other symptoms that you would like to see addressed by future drug treatments apart from what was included in the prior question? Nearly 500 participants wrote in a response, so it wasn't the full sample, but 500 people chose to do that. Of those, 300 people wrote in a different symptom from the ones we had asked about before. Some repeated or reiterated the symptoms we had already asked about. So there are 300 people reflected on this slide. The x-axis, the horizontal axis, is from the denominator is the full sample of that 1,100 people. So the percentages are kind of small, but we thought it was important to kind of, because everyone had the chance to see this question, we thought that was the important denominator to reflect. So the striking result here is that caregivers wrote in mental health most often as a treatment priority. This was one that, surprised me, and we found this to be really important. In closing, the results emphasize breathing, speaking, and swallowing as important directions to pursue with future drug treatments for ALS, MND, and caregivers also lifted up mental health as a priority. This evidence comes from a very large cross-section of people with ALS and MND, or in the ALS-MND community. It's an example of how large-scale data can amplify community perspectives and infuse those perspectives into drug development strategies that make ALS livable. We're still analyzing this data. Our next phase of analysis will test if those top 3 treatments differ by demographic characteristics or somebody's health status. And what will be interesting is if there's a top priority that cuts across all people regardless of their different characteristics. We collected this survey data and all ALS-focused data with the intention of helping advocacy organizations, drug developers, and agencies better understand what the ALS community values, whether it's new drug treatments or genetic testing and counseling or mobility equipment. We have data on all of these topics, and we share that data for free with the community. And so that's kind of takeaway or advertisement. Not only are we trying to grow the ALS-focused panel of participants, but also we were trying to grow the number of organizations that are using this data source to inform the work that we're all doing. I want to thank especially our ALS-focused participants, our Patient and Caregiver Advisory Committee, our ALS-focused sponsors, past and present, and our partners throughout this room. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah. So we have time for a few questions. Okay, over there, please.
Hi, Sarah. I'm Elida from ALS Canada. Great work. This is really valuable information. I'm curious if you had a chance to directly socialize this information with the group that you've consulted initially. Like I think you mentioned the FDA and industry, and I'm curious if you've done so, what their reactions have been.
Yes, that's a great question. We prepared the results and showed them to our Patient and Caregiver Advisory Committee because we want to know what are the best subgroups to analyze when we do that analysis of do these top priorities hold true depending on differences in somebody's characteristics. So we wanted to ask them what they thought of the results first. We also have plans to talk with the Food and Drug Administration again to make sure the analysis that we're running is really rigorous. We want to publish the data, and we want it to be taken seriously and valued by a lot of different groups, including the FDA. So we have been talking about these results. We have our steering committee meeting in a couple of weeks, and we'll present the information again there.
Next question over there.
Hi, Gethin Thomas from MND Australia. That mental... Over here.
Thank you.
That mental health outcome was really interesting, really striking. Do you know if when the carers were suggesting better treatments for mental health were a high priority, they were just referring for their patients or also for the carers? Do they need that mental health support as well?
Yes, I don't know the answer to that. I would have to, I have a team that ran the qualitative analysis that informed that result, so I'll have to check with them. But we were asking caregivers directly, what do you think is most important? And so I'm not sure if they wrote in mental health of the person I care for or my own mental health, and I see your point of those both being important in different ways. That's something that I'm going to take from here, and I think it's something we should break down for the publication.
Okay, thank you so much, Sarah, for a nice work. I think we have to move on. Are there... Okay, one last quick question.
Oh, great, thank you.
Quick question.
Cassandra Haddad and the Legacy. I'm curious if you broke down the results into subcategories like based on time of onset to differentiate between preferences or priorities and fast progressors versus slow progressors?
We are planning to do that. We haven't done that yet. That's part of that next phase of analysis. One challenging part of that is how do you categorize fast progressors and slow progressors with this kind of survey data? So if anyone has advice on how to do that, we have information on time to diagnosis and different health status characteristics, ambulation, speech ability, and so forth. And I think it's going to take all of that information to kind of create an algorithm that will indicate someone's progression and do that in an accurate, valid way.
All right. Thank you so much. Very nice.
Thank you.